All right, welcome back, guys, for another video on Tim Cain. This one is consistency in leadership. Oh, from all your bad teacher experiences at school and university, I learned what kind of teacher I don't want to be. Yeah, that too. Hey, I'm with you on that one. Soon to be wife. Property. Got that.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today, I want to talk about consistency in leadership. And maybe a better way to put that would be if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be consistent. It's what people expect. It's probably the first thing you should think about yourself if you're thinking about stepping into a lead role or being a director or being a producer.
It's tough. You know, I've been in a lead role. I didn't feel properly ready for the leadership role that I was thrust into. I don't think that I handled it very well, and I certainly wasn't very consistent. But consistency to me is not only, in hindsight, I know that I should have been consistent not only in the way that I acted, but the things that I said too. It's your behavior or your attitude to different things, your values. All of these can reflect on the direction of your team or of your company, and being consistent, even if you're not always the greatest or people don't agree with your values, can at least give them a stable mindset and frame of mind for how and where they should expect the company to go where it wants to go. So, when we say that, like with Microraptor Games, we want to be a values-driven company, to us, the consistency and stability in how we live our values undermines, or maybe underwrites or something. There's probably a better word for this. How we go interact on a day-to-day basis with transparency, with collaboration, with ethics in mind. All of these should influence the way that we talk to each other, the way that we behave, the way that we interact with the community, especially. And for us, that consistency in leadership, which does have to be expressed not only on a CEO level, but also all levels of management, helps to make sure that people can identify us as a place they do or don't want to work, or at a place where they can feel like their values are going to be looked after too if they agree with the way that we're working. I think consistency is incredibly important. Otherwise, people just don't know what to expect. It's chaotic. They'll say, oh, well, you lied to me here and you told me the truth here. I don't know what you are saying. I don't know if what you're saying is true or false at this point. And the moment you lie, and this goes not just for leadership roles, but for real life, you are considered a liar. Just as Asmongold says, you build 100 bridges, you suck one dick. You're not a bridge builder, you're a dick sucker. And maybe, it's a little bit crass for this particular video, but the sentiment rings true. You tell 100 truths, you tell one lie. You're not a you're not a truth teller, you're a liar.
Are you consistent? The problem with not being consistent is if you decide differently for different people, you will either be inconsistent, which will drive people crazy, or you'll be perceived as inconsistent, which will still drive people crazy.
Yeah, even if you're not, it's just the how you're perceived as a leader is just as important as how you actually are as a leader. It doesn't even matter. If you're perceived as a liar, people will not trust the words coming out of your mouth, even if you didn't tell a lie. And sometimes that can just be an accident. It can be a miscommunication. I mean, a lot of the problems that exist in game development and other team-oriented, industries or jobs is oftentimes just miscommunication.
If you're not being inconsistent, let me talk about each one of those separately. In the deciding differently camp, let's say you have somebody who comes in late a lot and you ignore it. It's fine. You don't care. And you have someone else who's coming in late and they end up getting written up. Well, that second person is going to be really, really upset.
Rightfully so.
Why am I being written up? I'm not the only one wandering in late every day.
Yeah, favoritism. I also had an issue too where in one of the previous places I worked, you had core hours for the team, and you had people on that team who were not working the core hours, and they were given leeway because they were good at what they did. They had worked there a long time. They had earned some leniency. But then there would be some issues if other people did not come in and work on time, even if they were also working the full 8 hours of the day. And that kind of inconsistency just says, oh, so you play favorites with people that, you know, have worked there for a long time, and you don't really give the same sort of treatment to the people who just started working there. It's Yeah, it's fucked up. And then too, if you have, like, let's say like I'm a team leader, in some case in this hypothetical scenario, and I have somebody on my team come in later than me. Well, can I discipline them for coming in later than me when somebody else on a different team has very different hours or comes in much later and is just given a pass? Now, again, like I said, there's inconsistency not in just an individual leader, but the way that the leadership is managed, which would reflect on the person in charge of that leadership or on the CEO themselves. All of that matters. All of that matters.
Even though they will acknowledge, yeah, they're coming in late.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be upset at that inconsistency. Similarly, if people are making complaints about the game and one person gets lauded for it, hey, that's great, you're right, we're going to get on that, and the other person is denounced, that you're horrible, why would you say such a thing? People are going to get really confused.
I've been there. I think you guys know at this point that there was a time where maybe some of you don't. Okay, this situation wasn't handled very well. But at one point on a game that I was making, I realized that a build that we were supposed to ship in only a couple weeks was broken as hell. It was horrible. It was not playable. There were so many bugs. There were crashes. There were progression stoppers. There was literally no way that we could get this game solved. And all of the bugs in the sprint, or any bugs in the sprint, were not addressing the issues that me and my friend in QA felt when playing the game. We believed that the game was legitimately broken, and with a first what's the first impression being so important on players, that delivering that initial build would be extremely detrimental. And so what I did was, on a Friday, I wrote in the general chat of the company, we need to have an honest and transparent discussion about two things. Number one, the removal of retrospectives from our meetings. And people who don't know, retrospectives are essentially a dedicated time to come together as a team and to identify what is and isn't working and what should and shouldn't be done in the production of the software, of the game in this case, or of the managing of the team, whatever. And the second thing was the state of our game. And this was supposed to be a conversation starter about, hey, why don't we talk about the things that aren't working in the team anymore? And why aren't we openly talking about the issues that the game has? That's pretty much what I meant by it. Now, could I have worded it better? 100%. 100%. Could I have done this not on a Friday and then turned off my computer? Yes, I also could have done that. But it caused the most massive shitstorm that I have ever had in a job, where upper management was openly and privately calling me disloyal for trying to sabotage the game by pointing out issues that the game had that would have made it unplayable for the players. I mean, that's my entire goal, was that I didn't want to release a broken build of the game, because then the players would play a broken build, and that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the publisher. It's not good for the players. It's not good for the company. It's not good for the team, because of course, the team isn't going to feel any better in morale when they read bad reviews. Nobody wants to know that the game that they've spent 3 to 5 years working on is shit. I mean, nobody wants that. So, long story short, this caused a shitstorm, and I know exactly how it feels to be thrust into a point where other people can say bad things, but usually only people in management and behind closed doors. But the moment that I try to bring up a concern that I have with the game and its stability right in public, in public with the team, I am considered disloyal and adversarial to the morality of the team, or the morale of the team, not the morality, but the morale of the team. Toxic positivity. I should have seen right then and there that that company was just going to be a toxic positivity nightmare. And that's exactly what it turned out to be.
Such a thing. People are going to get really confused. And
Yeah, it was confusing.
it is going to trickle back to you as if you're somehow being a bad leader,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to get reflected back to you. Now, some of this might be perceived inconsistency. So let's revisit those two. Maybe that first person who's coming in late, maybe they sat down and talked to you and they have a really good reason why on some days they may not be here on time.
That's not
They're
communicating
showing
with
that
the
they're
team,
getting
though.
all their work done on time despite that, and you give them permission to come in late occasionally because of that reason.
I think, yeah, I think in some cases, the reasoning is fine. The problem is that you're working in a team, and that if lead artist comes in at a normal time, the time that 95% of the other workplace comes in at, and has a problem that only this individual who's coming in late can solve or help to resolve, now you might be blocking most of the team from getting things done, because now the lead artist cannot resolve his issue, and his issue was an issue that was brought up by a junior. The junior cannot continue with what they were doing, so you're holding up the team, and it's costing a lot of money simply because that individual is coming in late. Now, I agree there might be some reasons, there might be a legitimate reason, whatever. It might even just be I was sick, or I had kids problem, whatever. Once in a while, it's not a big deal, but if it's consistently late and it's holding up the team, that is costing time and money, and you kind of do need to lay down the law and say, look, we need you at this time. If you cannot manage that at a consistent pace, we're going to have to take a different action to this, because we need the entire team running as efficiently as possible, and you are the weakest link here. Nobody wants to have that discussion, but sometimes it is the discussion that needs to be had.
Well, that second person doesn't know anything about that.
Exactly.
So when they come to you to complain, you might want to say, hey, did you come and talk to me about your being late? First person did. Did you have a valid reason for always being late, or are you just waking up late? The first person did. Did I give you permission to come in late occasionally? I did to the first person. And these are things they don't need to know what that person's reason is. But you do need to explain why you are being consistent. Similarly, with the people who are making complaints about the game.
I think too that, I don't know, I'm weird. I share a lot of personal things about myself and the way that I think. I do know that some of these can be detrimental to how people view me, but I just want to be genuine. I want to be honest. I don't want to hide the less enjoyable parts of my life or my being just because I think that it might hurt people's image of me. I would rather that people see me for who I am than have some grandiose vision of me. I think that it's okay if you just put a message in the public team chat that says, hey, from now on, this individual is going to be coming in at this time, and it's just due to personal reasons. So just, if people are aware, this is when you can expect this person to be in at work. If you're all adults, I don't think any adult's going to care too much. It's going to be like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't know. Again, I understand people's privacy, but at the same time, if you need to communicate it, and I don't think there's any other way to communicate it other than here's what's going to happen for this individual. It's for reasons that I won't disclose. Please don't ask them or pester them about it. Thank you. Have a good day. I mean, at least then you get the message out. It's not the most, pleasant of topics, but also I think that the transference of, that's a weird word to use here, just transference of information is more important than, in this case, I think how perfectly it's worded. I don't think that's a rude way to put it. But I agree with Tim.
You might say, well, look at what the first person did. Their complaints were very constructive. They were actionable. I've done a whole video, I'll link it below, on how to give good feedback. If that second person is just complaining about stuff, is basically just whining and saying, I hate this is dumb, I don't like this.
Yes.
Well, you can point out to them, why are you even bothering? I can't do anything with this, or I can't pass your complaints on to anybody who can take any action on them. You're basically just whining in meetings.
I think that, though, there is a fine line between whining and stating something is bad but not knowing why it's bad, right? So you might say, I'm just not a fan of the combat. I can't really place why. I'm just not a fan. And I think that maybe as a good leader, you should say, okay, do you want to have a conversation about it? Do you want to figure out why you don't like it? And maybe the person's like, yeah, I don't really know how to word why I don't like it. Like, okay, let's watch some gameplay of our combat. Let's point to me where you don't like it, and we'll see if we have similar views or if maybe we differ on something, and let's just have a conversation. There were a lot of times in the past where I didn't always know how to resolve the problem, right? And I think that it's different not knowing why than not knowing how. For instance, I can say, oh, I think that our production needs fixing because it's clearly not making the game very well. That is actionable. It's just not very detailed. But it's also because I may not know enough about production to specify exactly where the issue is occurring, and I would like to have a discussion to find that point. I can say, okay, well, it's ending up with this. What is the cause of A and B? Then we can have the discussion about how we got from this point to this point and find actionable items to that. That's one of the points of like a retrospective meeting, right? Is that we should stop overestimating our sprints. That's not actionable. It's not very descriptive, but it is a conversation starter where then the team is like, oh the art team is not having the problem. It's the programming and design teams that are having the problem estimating their times. Why is this? Let's dive deeper. Okay, programming is underestimating the amount of time that they need to accomplish things. Why is that? Are they maybe not spending enough time planning how they would solve that problem in the code? And maybe they're underestimating how much work it would be from that. Okay, so the issue now is that we need to have more comprehensive discussions about how we would implement features so that we more accurately estimate the tasks that we need to complete. Therefore, you've solved the problem by having that discussion and, tracing it back to its source. And I think that sometimes the complaints or the people who want to have a conversation, like, for me in some cases, can be misconstrued as complaining when really I just want to start a conversation about it because I don't always know where the source is, but without a discussion with more knowledgeable individuals, I can't find that source on my own. Hey, Tony Cog. Grady's yapping. I do yap a lot. Sorry, I know I yap. But that's how I make these at least have some sort of merit to them rather than just, oh, true. Oh, that's so true, Tim. Oh, yeah, thanks for the video. I'd rather just shove in some accused of yapping and complaining. Yeah, I mean, I get that too. It is what it is. I like discussions. I like discussions, and I don't always know the cause of problems in a company or in a game, and I need to talk through it and come to that realization along with everyone else. So I don't know. I just like talking.
The person is pointing out
I'm a yapper.
problems and trying to make the game better and stem off future problems by pointing out actionable things that we could do now. There's a huge difference between the two.
Yes, there is.
I think once you start explaining to people why you make the decisions you do, and they understand that you are being consistent and what it is that you want, you come across as a far better leader.
Agree.
Similarly, you have to realize that not making a decision is making a decision. I just did the video yesterday on flavor. And I said, deciding not having a flavor is a flavor. If you're the type of leader that delays making decisions on things or just doesn't, things happen and you just shrug and move on, that's making a decision. That's telling people you don't care about things, or you don't care about certain things, or you don't care about certain people doing certain things. And that is a decision, and that will go out among your team, and they will view you as a very inconsistent leader.
True.
Now, I'll put a caveat on this.
I think, too, that sometimes inaction can just be a bit of, lack of experience, unsurety, uninsured, unable to be sure. Is a way of putting it. And I can feel that, sometimes the more I go deeper into the industry, the more I know I don't know. And that not knowing to me means that I don't always know the best way to do something that is outside of my own purview, especially, like design, I can make pretty good decisions. Production, I can make okay decisions. I haven't had a whole lot of experience as a leader, and so there are some decisions that as a leader, I just don't have a lot of knowledge about, and I might be a little indecisive, or I may not be as quick as a experienced leader would be, and that's something I need to get better at. It will sort itself out. Some things do sort themselves out, but other times they don't. It's hard to know which is which sometimes, though.
That you absolutely cannot be the best leader for everyone.
It's true.
Because everybody wants a different
Yep.
leader, different traits in a leader.
Well, that's exactly why I think that, well, not only consistency is important, as the video is about, but also describing your values so that people can contextualize the reason you're making a decision. You can say, well, I'm making this decision because, remember, one of our values is ethics. I understand that we could make more money putting loot boxes in our game and making a live service game with those microtransactions. But this does not align with our values. So the reason that I'm choosing it is not because I hate money. It's because it doesn't align with the way that I want to make a game for the players. Fucking if I'm the leader they got because nobody else would step up. I mean, sometimes that's also the case. But I think that describing your values and the values of your company can help to contextualize and prevent a lot of issues. I've worked at a company that had values. I've worked at a company that didn't have values. It was way more confusing at the company without values because I didn't know why our leader was making the decisions he was making. And he would flip-flop. He would do some things sometimes because he said he cared, and he would do the complete opposite because he cared about the money. And it's like, well, what do you actually care about? Where do you draw the line? Are you okay with me lying to players? Okay, well, I'm not. And in other cases, you would rather tell the truth. Well, I would too, but you're clearly not going to draw a line so strict in the sand that you're going to give up money in order to protect the truth. Obviously, I don't mesh well with that kind of person. I'm no longer working there, so take of that what you will.
I've worked with people who always want to be told the truth, no matter how brutal it is, whether it's about them or the project or the company. They want to know. And if they find out that you knew and withheld that information from them, they will be very, very upset.
I will quit. Yep, I'm that type of person. Like Raptor reacts.
At the other end of the spectrum, I've worked with people who want to be lied to.
Yep.
They don't actually say that, but it turns out they're the type of person who wants to be told, oh yeah, everything's fine.
They want to be told because it's stable. They don't want to think about the stress of the business. They don't want to. They just want to come in. They want to do their tasks, collect their paycheck, go home, live a happy life. And you know what? To be fair, I can't fault them. Everybody has a different need and desire for how they live. Fair enough. But I don't work that way, and I don't want to hire people that work that way. I would rather people who do avidly seek the truth and keep me accountable for telling the truth and maintaining my consistency. My friends, like Katzber, will do that. That's all he cares about when it comes to our communication. And he will also force me to make decisions when they need to be made. I really like that. He keeps me accountable, and he keeps me on my toes, which is where I should be. Those are the types of people that I like to work with.
Don't worry about that. Yeah, the publisher said this, but it'll be fine. That's what they want to be told.
Yep.
They really do. If you tell them anything else, they begin to freak out. They stop doing their work. They start interrupting everyone else. They're freaking out. You literally cannot tell them the truth because of that famous quote, you can't handle the truth. And I've worked with people like that. Some of them were aware.
Well, and I think that isn't an issue with the individual. That is an issue with the hiring. That is an issue with the management, where that is part of your culture, is who you hire and how you maintain those group values, those team-wide values. And if you're hiring people who are split between that, the moment you tell the truth, you upset this camp. The moment you lie, you upset this camp. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That is your fault as the leader. Or let's put it, okay, maybe fault, not the greatest word, responsibility. And you chose to hire people that believe in this and not for, putting at the forefront your values and how you communicate. I specifically then, after this company, I sought out a company where I mentioned I desire a company that is transparent, that tells the truth no matter what it is. And I found one. That was at Far From Home. And they had meetings with investors. And you know where they were handled? Right there in the public. In this case, it was Slack, or I think no, it was Discord. Well, either way, it was Slack or Discord. Can't remember. But they handled those investor meetings, and you could just sit in and listen on them. And then all of the notes from that were publicly, put into the chat for the rest of the employees. I loved it because they weren't hiding anything, and it was a very, very healthy team. Go buy their game. Go buy Forever Skies.
It. They were self-aware to know, yeah, you need to cushion things with me. Others were like, I can't believe you didn't tell me. And then they spend hours running around talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this doesn't mean you, as a good leader, you don't want to adapt to team members.
Correct.
I've talked about it, and I tried to find the video to link below. I couldn't find it. I know I've talked about the fact that when I made Fallout, I had two very different people on the team. One of whom, when I gave him his work, he did not want me to check in with him until he was done. And he would come to me if he ran into a problem. But if basically he was a no news is good news kind of guy.
In fairness, I'm kind of that way when I write design documents. I don't like programmers looking at the design document while I'm writing it because I might delete things or rewrite things. And so if I do it more to make sure that the version that they read is the correct one, or the one that I want to talk about. And if they read it too soon, they might see and think something that pulls them on a tangent, and then they close the document, they think about it, and I'm writing the document and I delete that. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. And they don't know this, right? Because I don't know that they're looking, I don't know that they're watching, I don't know that they're reading, and it can just cause some miscommunications too early. That doesn't mean that I don't want to talk about the system, but that my work in progress design is work in progress because it is not finalized. It might not be good. When I come up with a game idea, especially at the high level, I tend to focus on the gameplay loop and not some of the back end systems of progression. And I do that because it's like, okay, what do you think about this gameplay loop? But then they might think about the progression. They're like, oh, what's the progression? I'm like, don't worry about that for now. Do you like the loop? And so you kind of have to dial in where the focus is for a conversation. And yeah, there's some moments where I would prefer to just hold on, wait until I'm finished, then we can talk about it. Other times I might be like, yeah, you can jump in, you can see how the prototype's going, give me some feedback. I think I'm getting more like the second version than the first, example as I get older, because I do everything on stream, but there's still some things that I do off stream. You're always watching. They kind of are. I don't know. Some of it comes from like vulnerability of being newer into the industry. When I was a junior, I didn't want people looking over my shoulder because it was stressful, and I felt like they were judging. Now I don't really give a shit, and some of that judgment can save me from writing stupid things later in the document. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
There was another guy on the team who was the exact opposite. If I did not check in with him every day, preferably before lunch, he would get a little worked up about it. He would be like, oh no, Tim hasn't come by. He must hate me. Something must be wrong. Oh my God, I must have done something terrible yesterday.
Kind of cute.
And both of those people were extremes, and they were on the same team, and it was a small team. And the responsibility was on me to adapt how I was a leader.
But this is adapting to methods of communication, I think, a little bit more than I think people who sorry, I'm losing my voice. I think the people who prefer to be lied to versus people that prefer to be told the truth is on a different level than people who prefer that you check in with them here or here, right? I think that one of them is a little bit more important to get consistent on a team. You don't want to get people on a team where you have that half and half. I've seen that. It fails. It's like an explosion waiting to happen. Because you can have good news and everybody's happy. But if you have bad news, you have one way, you have to choose one way of saying it. And one way is going to piss off half the people, and another way is going to piss off the other half of the people. And you're screwed in that case.
How I was a leader. One of them got a visit for me every morning. In fact, I think I had it on my calendar, like at 10 a.m. Wander around, stop by this person's
It's
desk.
pretty funny.
Sometimes I had something to say to him, like, "Hey, I like what you did yesterday." Sometimes it was just, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, what about that traffic this morning?" It didn't matter what I said. It was just that I
Yeah.
stopped by. The other person,
Honestly, no. I don't want to. I don't want to glance over that. I think just checking in with your workers, even if it's just a casual chat, shows that the leadership is present. I think consistency in leadership is important, but especially now with remote work, presence in leadership is also important. I'll give you an example. So during COVID, of course, you had this push to remote work, and I really enjoy working in an office because you have that presence of people. And I know that my CEO uh, was so happy working at home that he pretty much stopped coming into the office, as with a lot of people. So it was me and like three other friends working at that office. And it was great. We had presence. We could talk about problems. And I felt like we were very efficient in getting things resolved and communicating between each other, especially because the four of us were in three different teams: design, LD, and like our team, and QA. So in fact, we all three of us had different people that we kind of looked up to. Although I was the lead of design, I really hated not seeing the CEO in person anymore because it felt like the flow of information it got vastly poorer. And it's not saying that remote work can't fix this, but that remote work was definitely the cause of this. Whereas in when he was in office, I could just, it was right around the corner from where I worked. I could just go in and say, "Hey, are you busy? Any news from publisher? Here's some issues that we have in the team," because I was just talking to people. Do we want to do anything about this? Should I handle it? What do we want to do? And these sorts of off the record, I don't know, that's a bad way of wording it. These sorts of spontaneous discussions and flow of information ceased to happen. And it felt like we were coming in and we were present and working on the game every day. And it's not like they weren't working, but it just felt like we were working at a different company. And none of the management was there. I was technically the highest ranking individual in the office at that time, and nobody else was to be seen. Let me see you when your ass is in trouble. That's not good. I mean, that too. So I don't know. I think that being present and showing that you care, even if you have nothing else to talk about other than, yeah, how was the traffic? Oh, the weather, it looks like it might rain today. At least it shows that it kind of like reaffirms that camaraderie right then in that moment. It doesn't even have to be anything important. It just shows you are there and you care. And I think that is consistent. That is part of your consistency as well. It shouldn't be undervalued.
that I stopped by. The other person, no, 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 no. The one time I stopped by and go, "Hey, are you gonna have that thing done by Friday?" He's like, "I told you I was. Don't ask me." So it's like
All right,
you
fair enough.
you
Yeah.
quickly learn. Okay, different handling for different team members. The other thing I suggest you do as a leader
In
is to
bulletproof.
watch your team.
Yes.
Look for people who are getting uneasy. Look for people who don't come to you when they have issues, or come to you but don't want you to do anything about it. They just want to vent. You have
Yes. I mean, and it's not even about micromanagement. I don't think it's not what he's saying, but it's more. I have worked with people, and maybe they're watching the stream right now. And if you are, I apologize. I'm not going to name names. But I've worked with people who just will not tell you when there's a problem, when they feel that there's a problem. And they might feel vulnerable, they might not like conflict, whatever. But I think that you do need to pull those people into the conversation. I have friends, I've talked about this before, but my friend Bartek, who is an artist, he and I are both like type A personalities, and I think we both probably have ADHD. We dominate conversations that we're in, and it's not because we don't want to hear from other people. Quite the opposite. It's that we constantly butt in because we kind of like jump in front of each other's conversation because we get where the conversation is going. And to people who don't communicate like that, I think that it can look Like we don't want their we don't want them to come into the conversation and tell their point of view. So as a leader, you often need to just like say, hey, hold on. What about you? What do you think? And directly call out the person. And I don't think it's rude. I understand that some people don't want to be directly called out, but you're working in game dev, you're part of a team. I think that, there's some minimum standard of communication that needs to occur so that the game can be made well and the team can run efficiently. Just let that person speak. Let that person say their opinions without that interruption, without that way of speaking. So, you have to adapt, and it's part of it. And the speaking style can matter too. And I know that I'm part of this, and I need to do better when I'm speaking with these people to say, hold on, your turn to speak, lay it out.
Have to watch for that, and I've made mistakes on that before. The big thing you want as a leader is you want your team to be able to predict how you will react. If they can't do that, they will get very uneasy talking to you or even working for you. If if the way you respond to things just appears to be random, they can't tell heads or tails of how you're going to respond to a particular piece of good news or bad news, or just
That's stressful.
generic
Yeah.
news. They're going to be very uneasy. They're not going to want to approach you, and it's going to come across later that you're not a very good lead.
Yep. It's true.
I don't need.
I mean, this is true, and I think one of the things that I learned being lead was that the more approachable I made myself, the better relations I had with my teammates. And I think that by and large they enjoyed working with me, but I'm not saying that I was perfect, but by and large I felt like I was approachable, and I had a lot of individuals feel intimidated, especially with the language barrier here in Poland, where they felt like they didn't want to speak English to me because they were worried that I might judge them. And of course, reaffirming that that wouldn't be the case helped me to be more approachable. And they would just DM me out of nowhere and say, "Hey, I was reading this design doc and I don't think this makes sense. I don't really like this, or I don't see how this would help players." And I would, explain why we had to make that decision. Sometimes it was like, "Oh, well, budget. It's like I wish we could do something better, but this is the best solution I have that is also doable in the time frame we have. So you're right. I'm sorry, but we have to do it this way." Or it would be like, "Yeah, this is bad. This is poorly worded, and I didn't write this section well enough. So I will fix this up for you. I'll let you know when I'm done." And we could make the understanding a bit better from that. So
Need to beat this
good
horse.
stuff.
Let me just tell you this. This is what you need to know to be a good leader. Be consistent, be predictable, and let the people on your team know what your expectations are, and to basically just know what kind of leader you are. You expect certain things from them. They can learn to expect certain things from you, and that will make you into a good leader. It takes a while to learn this. Some people are good at this right out the bat. Other people have to learn it. Some people never learn it.
I have to learn it.
This is something you're going to have to pay attention to when you're a senior and you start managing people, to see if you can step up and be in a lead role. So I hope.
Yeah, and not everybody is meant for that. I know that plenty of individuals who are very happy, they have like 30 years of experience. They are seniors. They are not leaders because they don't want to be. They either don't want the stress or to think about it. They don't want the extra workload. Maybe they're not good at teaching or being with repeating themselves. Whatever it is, they're happy in the senior role. They make a lot of money in the senior role. They do their work. They help their juniors where they can. They go home and they have a happy life. And I can't blame them for that. There can only be one.
This helps you if you're deciding whether or not to be a lead.
Yeah, this was a great video by Tim, and I think this gives me a lot to think about, and hopefully it gives you guys some things to think about too if you want to be a leader as well. So, guys, here's the link to it. Go give that a like. Go give it a watch. Go give him a sub. And if you're watching YouTube, thank you for watching that. I will catch you on the next one. Bye bye, YouTube.